Let's retire now. That's a statement that everybody wants to make, but ultimately, a lot of people are putting off some of those conversations. Maybe they shouldn't. This week, we spoke to Ali Kawar from the U.S. Labor Department on retirement planning. Here's what he had to say.
For a lot of people, retirement is within reach. Time isn't on your side when you're planning for your retirement. And the earlier you start saving, the better off you'll be. And so one really important initiative is to make sure that things like 401ks are available to as many Americans as possible.
And planning early can help you feel a bit more comfortable with your outlook. 7 out of 10 Americans feel confident they have enough money to live comfortably throughout retirement, according to an Employee Benefit Research Institute survey that's out today. To break down how to set yourself up for success in your golden years, Robert Powell, Retirement Daily editor and publisher, is here. Great to have you back on the show with us. Okay, how can people, even if they're hearing some of these stats about preparedness, how can they take that first step to ensure that they're at least starting the planning in the correct way?
Yeah, so what's interesting about the EBRI study is, first of all, how confident people are. But what's, to me, even more interesting, Brad, is the notion that there's a high correlation between planning for retirement and being very confident that you'll be able to enjoy the same standard of living in retirement that you did in your working years. And that's really important, that people plan. The other really interesting note is that people who have a financial advisor are also more likely to feel very confident about how their retirement will be. And so I think put those two things together, do the calculations, figure out how much you need to save for retirement. And also, if you need to, hire a financial advisor, or at a minimum, maybe find a financial advisor who will charge an hourly fee and who will be your sounding board, especially if you're working and you're young. Having those two things in place will definitely not only lead to higher confidence, but I also think will actually lead to higher success in retirement.
You know, the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary for the Employee Benefits Security Administration that we spoke to yesterday, Ali Kawar, I had asked him the question essentially about what the real figure is like, and that's different for everybody, right? Based on how you intend to have a lifestyle in that retirement, whether you plan to have supplemental income or, just how you want to maintain a mentality and whatnot. We got kind of a quasi-answer, but I guess it's a quasi-answer because it's so different for everybody, right? And so where has that kind of average goal moved towards? Where is that goal line now?
Yeah, I'll give you sort of two rules of thumb, Brad. One is to sort of think about how much money you need to accumulate relative to your salary. So companies like Fidelity, Rowe Price, Lincoln, others have said maybe what you need is somewhere between 10 to 12 times your final year's salary set aside in your nest egg in order to fund your desired standard of living. The other folks say another rule of thumb would be to look to replace 75 to maybe 80% of your pre-retirement income in retirement as a way to sort of make sure that you'll have the same standard of living. I think those are great places to start, but there's no substitute for actually crunching the numbers. I always think of retirement income planning as a Excel spreadsheet. I think of it as a row by row and column by column exercise. Now, the one thing I'll say about both these numbers is it varies by income. So for folks who are in the highest income quintile, they may not need to replace 80% of their pre-retirement income. They may only need to replace 50%. For folks in the lowest income quintile, on the other hand, they may need to replace 90% of their pre-retirement income. And the bulk of that money, at least in the lowest income quintile, will probably come from Social Security. And for those in the highest income quintile, Social Security will represent a very small portion of their retirement income, maybe 15%. So you're right, it varies, and it varies mostly by income levels, but also education levels and race.
For those who want to enjoy retirement, but also want to stay, active to a certain extent, are there common jobs that you find people gravitating towards, even in retirement, to enjoy, a certain lifestyle or a certain kind of acuity maintenance?
Yeah, I mean, you see lots of folks who are going into retirement. Well, two things I should note. A lot of folks at the moment, according to EBRI, do plan to retire at age 65, but also to keep working after they retire from their full-time jobs. And I would say that's a good plan for some and a bad plan for others. The reason it's a bad plan is, according to Ebrey, only half of those people who say they plan to keep working in retirement are able to do so. So if you're planning to work out of need as opposed to out of want, I would say come up with a better plan than that. And then in terms of working in retirement, if you've been a white collar worker in the past, maybe you want to dial back. Maybe you want to become a consultant. Maybe you want to become a contractor to the company that you previously worked for. Maybe you want to do something entirely different and maybe work, in your field, but for another entity, maybe for a nonprofit, for instance. And part of this working in retirement is a matter of want and need, or a combination of both. If you need to keep working because you need to fund your living expenses, that's a very different story. If you're working out of want because you need the social interaction, you need somewhere to go in the afternoon aside from, maybe going to the local coffee shop and spending all day there surfing the web. That's a whole nother thing as well. And then for the other people in the middle, it's a mix of both. In some cases, people do need the income. In some cases, it's a combination of need and want.
Robert Powell, Retirement Daily editor and publisher. Great insights as always. Thanks so much, Robert. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Brad.